you know Na'aumakua, please join me and we will pule for Mauna Kea Stewardship, Oversight, and Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. So, Na'aumakua, mai kalahiki akalakau, mai koho'oku i akahalavai. Na'aumakua ya kahina akua, ya kahina alo, ya ka'akau i kalani, o kiha i kalani, o e kalani, nunuli kalani, ka holo i kalani. E a kapulapula o ko o Mauna Kea Stewardship, Oversight and Oversight Authority. E malama o ko ya mako. E ulu i kalani, e ulu i ka honua, e ulu i ka pai aina o Hawaii, e ho mai ka ike, e kaika, e ho mai ke akamai, e ho mai ka mapupono, e ho mai ka ike papalua, e ho mai ka mana, a mama ua noa. Thank you.
Mahalo, thank you. As I understand it, there are no, at this point, comments from the public on anything on our agenda. So the next item of business is approval of the April 13th, I'm sorry, April, looking at the wrong date. Our August
10th.
Minutes.
Pardon me, John, do you need us to verify that we are alone in our spaces, those of us on Zoom?
I've actually read the statute and that only has to occur when we go to executive session to tell you the truth.
Okay.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
No, you're right. If you're in executive session, anyway, we can do that now. And if anyone if anyone's status changes during the meeting. So I'd like everybody to verify that those that are calling in virtually, that they are alone in the room. So I'm going to also tell you that, and I was going to bring it up in our chair report, that I'm going to ask us to go into executive session to talk about something that just happened on Monday. But anyway, we'll talk about that then. But if your status changes in terms of people in the room, please let us know when we enter executive session. Thank you. So any changes to the August 10th minutes?
I move that we adopt the August 10th minutes.
Okay, could you second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, for the chair's report, I had three things I wanted to mention to you. The first was that, I think we had a very, the governor convened us for a meeting, and we had a very nice discussion with the governor. Also had a very nice discussion with the governor and among ourselves regarding the matter of how we co-manage with the University of Hawaii. I believe that the governor will be calling an additional meeting so that we can kind of continue our discussion both with them and among ourselves about this co-management issue. So just want to thank everybody for attending that meeting with the governor and participating in our discussion. The second matter that I wanted to talk about, just to kind of inform you, is that I was invited by the Mauna Kea Management Board to attend their meetings. For those of you that are not familiar, the Mauna Kea Management Board is an advisory committee, I believe, to the Chancellor. That is a voluntary community-based management board that gives recommendations to the Chancellor about various matters. They wish for us to increase our relationship with them and have better communication. So as part of that, they invited me to attend their meeting, which I did on Tuesday early evening. It was very instructive for me about how they handle certain matters, such as the antennas and other more minor type of things that are happening on the Mauna. But just to let you know that I may at some point we're going back and forth as whether we rotate members to attend their meeting, but then on the other hand, if we rotate members attending their meeting, we may not have the needed continuity. Having said that, my role, which I expressed to them, was that I was just an observer at the meeting. I didn't intend to say anything, ask any questions, but merely to kind of observe what they're doing, and then, subsequently try to improve communications. The third thing that I wanted to bring up was that on Monday, I was informed that OHA is seeking to bring a lawsuit against us, the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. It arises out of an existing lawsuit where OHA has sued the state of Hawaii, the Department of Land and Natural Resources, contending that the state of Hawaii, through those two organizations, breached their fiduciary duty and their trust. Anyway, so I was reminded that we don't have a formal agenda item about an executive session. Nonetheless, at any time during a meeting, if we would need to consult with our attorney, we can always make the requisite motion, explain why we need the meeting, and then assuming that the motion passes, we can then meet in executive session with our attorney. For logistics reasons, because we have people physically present and I don't want them to move in and out, I'm going to ask that we hold off on that executive session to more fully describe the lawsuit until how we usually have our executive session at the end of the calendar or agenda. So we'll talk. The only reason for the executive session right now is to kind of fill you more in about this proposed lawsuit. When I say proposed lawsuit, because the lawsuit is already in existence, the OHA has to get the court's approval to add us as a defendant, and I don't believe that motion has been granted yet. It's pending, but hasn't been granted. So we'll talk about that a little bit more during, assuming that we get our that the motion carries, that we'll talk a little bit more about that lawsuit in executive session. Any questions about any of the three matters? Okay, thank you. In terms of governance, I don't know, for the record, we just have to ask again if there's anyone that wants to testify on any of the governance matters. If not, what I wanted to do was to create two more pigs to start talking about. The first pig is to start talking about and investigating the development of a master plan or management plan in regards to the Mauna and our relationship to the Mauna. As you know, the statute requires us to establish a management plan, and it's a very, very involved, detailed process. So I wanted to start us thinking about what resources we need, what we would start doing to start creating the master plan. As part of that master plan, one of the big issues is the issue of the carrying capacity for the Mauna in regards to astronomy. That would be part of the master plan, but it goes much more than that. It goes to dealing with conservation, water, etc. So it's a huge undertaking. So I'm going to create a pig that deals with that, and right now I would like to appoint Rich Matsuda as a chair of that pig. Noi Noi would be vice chair. Kalehua, Ben, and Kamana would also be on that master plan pig. Part of the reason for part of the selection is that certain individuals bring certain level of expertise and actually have been designated. For example, although Ben hasn't been designated, his kind of specialty and what he understands is land use and issues dealing with land. Kamana was appointed as an individual that has expertise in the water management issue. So that's part of the reason for appointing these particular individuals to the PIG. The second PIG that I'm going to create is a PIG dealing with communications and community outreach. Part of what we're trying to do is try to explain to people what we're doing. We also get called on occasion to develop communications, and we're going to have to figure out how we either bring in a consultant or someone to help craft some of the communications that we're going to have to do. So on that PIG, what I'd like to do is I'm going to appoint myself as chair of that committee. The other members that I want to get involved are on this is Lanakila, Paul, Laura, and Pomai. So we'll start trying to figure out some kind of overall what we need in terms of resources, what our goals will be in terms of developing a more robust communication plan as well as community outreach. Doug, as a FYI, once the master plan management plan gets going, I'm thinking about creating another PIG dealing with, we need rules and regulations, I guess. I forget what they call it, administrative rules. And that's going to be a long, involved process. But I think the master plan has to get ahead of that. But at some point, Doug, I'm going to try to create a PIG that deals with that. And I'm probably going to ask you to head that group. But I think right now, until we get some traction on the master plan, it'd be premature to create a PIG dealing with the rules.
Yeah, and John, I appreciate that, and I know that's beforehand, but I would just put my banano in that Laura be the vice chair on that. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Don't look so happy, Laura. But anyway, so that's the plan now. So I'm gonna create those two PIGs and get us going, because the it's gonna take us a good many years to tell you the truth to come up with that plan.
John?
Yes.
Yes, just a comment. You had mentioned the word management, so master plan or management plan, and I would like to make sure that the PIG has the flexibility there in what they're going to end up calling it. So
yeah, the reason why I called it a management plan is that that's what's in the statute.
right. So that's why I'm saying I don't want to get stuck with the name master plan if the PIG might make a recommendation as to what the plan is actually going to be entitled, and I want to make sure there's room for that.
Yeah.
In the creation, so we don't get hung up later. So development of maybe take the capitals out, and because it looks like a title, so
right.
Master or management plan.
Yeah. And to be clear, at least as a start, to me, it's the definition as created within Act 255 that actually creates what the scope of that PIG's responsibility and what they're driving towards is as described. At least the minimum would be what's described in Act 255. Okay.
John, if I could, because I assume that you're going to move forward with vote, or I don't even know if we have to do that, but on the comms and community outreach, given that the PIG that we have, which is the consultant PIG, for the lack of a better title, that does include in the minutes I was going back and looking at, it does include community engagement. And so I would suggest that there at least be consensus that that portion of our pig be removed, and because you guys are going to be looking at it as a part of the comms and community outreach side.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't think, Jordan, do I need a vote on the creation? It didn't seem to me that I needed a vote.
No, the statute doesn't require a vote on it.
Okay. All right, so with the suggestions of everyone, I hereby create the pigs, I guess. So we'll get started, but we got a lot of work to do. So I thought just getting us started would be really great on this. Any further discussion on the pigs? Otherwise, I'm gonna move to administration and
John,
Yes.
just to make sure I got it, because I was writing as the discussion was going on.
Yeah.
The charter for the management plan PIG is investigation and development of a management plan as described in Act 255 for Mauna Kea lands.
right.
So that's what I'll use as chair to charter the group. Okay. Copy.
Okay, any other further questions or comments or? Not, I wanted to move to administration and ask Wes to provide us a status regarding the executive director position description and potential posting for that executive director.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Thank you for your patience on the executive director position. It's been established. The thing that needs to be done, though, is because it's an exempt position, it needs to be authorized by the union. So HGA needs to authorize that exemption. In the meantime, though, the advertisement can go out. It's just that you can't fill the position or someone cannot start until that exemption is received. And so it's working its way through that process. We're hopeful that we can get it within a week or two. But I just wanted to thank you all also for your comments on the advertisement. And so I put together some of the feedback and I'll be sending it out later today after this meeting so that you can all take a final review on it. But thank you all for whatever feedback you're able to give, which means that if we can get it out, to DLNR sometime by tomorrow, then maybe they can start advertising by early next week. And I accepted all of the comments that were provided, and thank you all for doing so. The only thing that I wanted to discuss was on the salary, if that's possible. And I'm not sure whether you wanted to do that in open session or executive session.
I think the salary ranges should be done in open session. I think
Okay.
discussion about individual, once we come to a point where we're talking about specific individuals, I think that probably has to be, or that should be done in executive session.
Okay.
So why don't you talk about initially the initial survey that you conducted?
The initial survey I conducted was looking at the executive branch for all the executive directors and specifically concentrating also on those that are attached to a specific department. Anyway, the average salaries for the executive directors was about 160 to 200,000 plus. And it ranged anywhere from about 120,000 or so to right now, there's an actual position that's attached that's making 370,000 a year. And so with that, you wanted to make sure, I would imagine you wanted to make sure as the authority that you get someone who's experienced. And that's why initially the range was set at 160 to 200,000. And it may even go beyond that because again, the data that I compiled, which was public information, was off of Civil Beat salaries. And the last that they had posted was for 2022. So just wanted to make sure that, and by the way, just for your information, the budget is authorized at 160,000. And it can always increase so long as there is sufficient space within the appropriation and the approvals gotten to increase it.
Okay.
So I know that there was a comment about setting the salary at 130, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, if you wanted to make the floor 160 instead and provide that range within the advertisement.
Let me just comment that I think this is going to be a hard position to recruit for. And hopefully we can get someone within that salary range. I'm not sure. But it's not going to be a position to easily recruited for. So anyway, I would urge us to have that 160 to 200 range. Comments, discussion.
I agree.
And Chair, if you don't mind, Chair, can I do 200 plus? Just so that there's some space in case you get someone that may require something beyond 200,000 and the board. Anyway, just for your consideration,
Okay,
that's my suggestion.
so that's fine. Let me make sure that it's fine with everyone. We're trying to develop a process now about how we're going to internally, I guess, evaluate potential applicants and then actually hiring. So right now, based upon prior experience, what we're thinking about is that when we get a pool of applicants, we'll have one committee, we'll try to set out criteria and have one committee that maybe takes us down to 5. And hopefully we get enough that we can get down to 5 people with 5 applicants being moving to the next round. These applicants will not be rated by the initial committee. We would have a subsequent committee that would then vet the 5 and either take them down to 3. This is kind of in flux, or make a recommendation to the whole board about a potential candidate. At the end of the day, and the reason why I bring this up is that at the end of the day, this whole board will have the opportunity to vote on selection of the executive director, as well as the terms of the agreement. In terms of, we're talking about salary now, so that just want to make clear that everybody on the authority will have a voice in terms of selecting the executive director. My hope is that, we have several other positions that have been approved by the legislature. My hope is that once we get an executive director, that we leave the management and selection of the team to the executive director, as opposed to us as a policy board selecting people to work with this whoever that executive director is. So anyway, open up for comment, discussion.
I just wanted to repeat that all your comments are very valid. We got to get the executive director in at the top so that he gets to choose his team. Otherwise, it might be tough for the person that comes in.
I would suggest also that it doesn't preclude perhaps any of our board members from being invited by the executive director to participate in that process. I don't know if that's going to be allowed, but that's just a thought, and maybe that's even premature to consider. But yeah, I'm fine with your process, John, that you laid out.
Yeah, I agree too. And back to the salary range, I think where we ended up was 160 to 200K plus. I support that. It's a very complex job, I think, to set up this authority. So we want to have somebody who has sufficient experience.
Ben, are you saying something, Ben?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I agree with Rich on the salary. You don't want to sell the authority short and miss an applicant considering even applying because the salary cap is too low. I think it behooves us to look at all the different applicants that we can possibly get and judge based on their experience and caliber, education, et cetera, background, whether there be a good candidate or not for that position. So I agree.
Yeah, this is Doug. If I have any concern or difference in opinion, it's that setting the bottom at 160 may actually be too low. So, but other than that, I concur.
After hearing everyone's feedback, I'm comfortable with the ranges proposed with 160 and then 200 plus to give us flexibility.
Any other comments? Doug, you okay with us just going ahead though with the 160? I mean, is it a strong feeling about the base?
No, it's just me making the point that I would be surprised that we actually bring in an executive director at that level. I think it's going to need to be at the 200 plus to get the kind of experience and with the variety of linkages that we're going to expect the executive director to have, I think.
You guys want to raise the base 180 to 200 plus?
I think that's a great idea.
I mean, I doubt we get somebody 180 either, but yeah, I mean, but
Just a question for Wes from the study you did when you sort of compare the scope of complexity and so forth of the job. If you applied a little bit more of a discerning filter to kind of that, would you think that would trend towards the higher, like the 180 to 220 kind of range, or?
Probably, having served in administrator or executive positions before, probably this is unique in that you're starting an agency rather than coming into one that's already been there. And so you're going to have different approaches, different strategies in terms of building that organization versus improving an organization. And so it comes with different expertise possibly. And so I would venture to say that it'd probably be on the higher end versus the lower end.
I guess maybe just for food for thought, I'm very comfortable with the flexibility on the high side. I think someone coming in who has significant experience is going to negotiate high because they understand their value. I guess I would be, how do I say this? I don't know that there's a need to push the bottom end up because I think we have that flexibility there. I guess I would be more comfortable knowing that, yeah, I agree with Chair in that finding someone that has everything we want. We don't have a pool of thousands. And so I'm just thinking, 160 to 225 with room to still negotiate past that. I guess I could see a situation where we have someone that has significant experience with great potential for growth, I guess I would say, that doesn't, they're not leaving a $250,000 job to come and take this. They may be coming in just based on experience alone on the lower end in terms of years. And for whatever reason, we might feel that that's an appropriate salary. So I guess I like us having that wide range, but I agree. I think we could, if we find that candidate with just great expertise, we will have to pay them what they're worth. So I guess that's my suggestion, is move the higher end up, and even with that, still have flexibility to go beyond our higher number.
So what say all of you? Okay, so Laura suggested 160 to 225 plus. I think the only reason to keep the 160, to tell you the truth, is some kind of expression that we're trying to be fiscally responsible. And we are, where we set, I think where we set the bottom is just for that reason, to let people know that we're being fiscally responsible, but we'll be fiscally responsible no matter where we set the limits anyway, bottom and top.
Chair, can
I have a question, John.
Oh, sorry.
Has everyone seen the executive director position job description? Do we have a detailed job description? Because I don't have anything in my file.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I'll make sure we'll get it to you, but it's very, very broad ranging.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it should be.
And very, very complex to me.
Yeah. Totally understand.
Chair,
We'll make sure we get that. Go ahead, Wes.
Oh, sorry. Members, one of the other reasons why maybe to leave it at 160 is because that's what the legislature authorized in terms of the budget. So it may be worthwhile to leave it at least the floor at 160 for now.
Okay, how about the top end? You guys want to go to 225 or plus?
Plus,
Any objection to going 220, making the range 160 to 225 plus? Okay. We have consensus, so let's do that. Okay, we are also, just so you know, trying to push through the position. You know, I mentioned that the other positions that have been authorized will probably be hired by the executive director, we hope. But we are trying to push through the position approval of the position descriptions for those other, so that, you know, we don't have to wait additional time when this executive director gets approved. So at least we have room to hire people. Okay.
Chair, did you want me to give a status on those positions as well too? Just so
Yeah,
that
you might.
for the board, just for the board's information. So there are, besides the executive director, there are other positions that are being, the descriptions themselves are being reviewed by the personnel office within DLNR. And so that's the project director. The project director is supposed to oversee the consultant and any other projects, consultants and any other projects that are being undertaken by the authority. And then there's also the administrative services officer who oversees the HR, IT, and whatever else general administrative needs of the authority. And then you also have two program specialists, one for compliance, because you have leases, subleases, and other agreements and documents that the authority will need to ensure that are being complied with. And then you have research and reporting program specialists. There's going to be a number of reports and other research and analysis that are needed from the authority. In fact, you have two, as you well know, you have two reports due to the legislature upcoming in December 29th, I believe, is the deadline. And so those are the other positions. The draft of the position descriptions have been written and submitted to the personnel office to review and edit. And once those final edits come back, then I will distribute them to all of the board members for their review.
Thanks, Wes.
So that's the status of the other positions.
We're gonna talk about when we go under talking about budget, seeking your approval to add another position. That we would have to get legislative approval for, and that deals with the IT type of individual. Okay, so if it's okay with everyone, we'll go 160 to 225 for the executive director, and hopefully we can start. We'll come up with a more formalized outline of how we would think that we'd hire the executive director that I kind of generally described, and we'll circulate it and have discussion at our next meeting to get everyone's approval.
Fair, just because words matter, as you know, 160 to 225 plus.
Correct. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next item of business is the Doug's report on the retention of consultants PIG.
That report will be ready for, we didn't make this, we didn't make it, so the report will be ready for the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Next item of business is reimbursement for related travel, and Wes, if you can sort of address that.
Sure, and I apologize in advance if your reimbursements have been held up or taking a while to get through, but unfortunately, being a part of the, well, fortunately or unfortunately, being a part of the executive branch, we have to follow certain administrative rules and policies and procedures that are enforced by other departments. And so with respect to our situation, being under land and natural resources, we have to comply with travel rules, administrative rules that were issued by the Department of Accounting and General Services. And they develop those rules and develop the policies and procedures. And so generally speaking, anytime you travel, you have to unfortunately print your boarding passes to show as evidence of the flight. You have to retain your receipts for if you rent a car or if you use your car, and you have to pay for the parking fees. And we have to make sure that there's a travel approval form. Technically, you need to make sure that there's a travel approval form before you even do the travel. And so you need the chair's approval, or first vice chair or second vice chair, or someone within the authority to approve the travel. And then unfortunately, once you completed that travel, and you're supposed to actually get 2 quotes from different airlines, unless you can justify traveling on one airline versus another. As an example, when you went out on the August 30th meeting, you had to be there early in the morning. And so you had to catch a flight that's, before the meeting. And apparently there's just one airline that, has a 6 a.m. flight or so. And so that's justification enough. There could be other justifications why you might use one airline over another, whether they can fulfill your needs or not, whether they have a higher fare or not. But there needs to be justification as to why you selected that one airline. And then finally, unfortunately, whoever approves the travel completion report needs to sign it in blue ink. They haven't changed the policy from decades ago, and things will not be processed unless it's approved in blue ink. So I apologize that I have to be the messenger of this information. And if your reimbursements are being held up, it could be any one of those several areas. But there is a way that we can process the travel reimbursements without fulfilling all of the requirements. As an example, I know that before, as an example, before Puena started and before I started, some of you have traveled. And so there's a waiver that's allowed. And I have the process and the documentation to do that. But the idea is for it to be in isolation and not to be used frequently. And so if need be, if there's any other travel that you haven't submitted for that you need to be reimbursed for, let's try to get it all wrapped up in one waiver if possible.
Let me make one, I'm gonna call on, I see Paul, Noi, and Ben may have one, but let me make one clarification and one thing that we're trying to do. We're following these processes voluntarily at this point, and let me explain why I say that. The statute, the Act 255 gives us an exemption from following the requirements under Hawaii Revised Statutes 2635. 2635 establishes what our relationship is, for example, with DLNR as our associated department. But what the Act 255 says is that we don't have to comply with that. We are exempted from a lot of all of these administrative rules. We have to come up with our own rules, but we may not, and I'm trying to get further clarification, we may not have to follow their rules. The exemption, I would ask you if you have time to look at Section 2635, because another huge thing that exempts us from is that generally when you go for administrative rules, you have to get it approved by the governor's office. What I see the exemption doing is that we do not have to get approval from the governor's office as it relates to administrative rules, but we're also trying to figure out how administratively what portions of our relationship with the DLNR are we exempted from. Having said that, creating a brand new pathway for this exemption may not be beneficial to us. So I'm trying to work with DLNR as well as our attorneys to understand what this exemption means, and then kind of hopefully utilize the DLNR side for processing only as opposed to approval, where we would figure out and create our own processes that if we sign off, that DLNR would then help us process rather than creating a brand new pathway for us to get processed by. So and I just tell you that's in the works and that's something that we're studying. So I don't know, Paul, if you wanted to say anything.
Me, because I'm on a mailing too. So I sent my travel approval with my copies of everything. And my question is, do I have to mail in the copy, the real thing, or can I do it electronically?
I know that one form that Ben submitted got rejected for not being the original. So I'm not sure.
It does have to be the original.
Yes, that's correct.
I've tried it the other way. It doesn't work.
It has to be the original. And just one clarification, John, Chair, if you don't mind. This is DAG's policy. This is not DLNR's policy. This is DAG's policy.
Yeah.
This is another department that we're dealing with, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it.
Right. Okay.
One more question I had. So are there two separate forms? Is it a travel approval to get approval for the travel? And then travel
Completed.
expense report to get reimbursed on travel reimbursement. So there's two reports.
That's correct. There's actually worksheets involved too that you have to provide in case if you rent a car Can
somebody send me those worksheets?
We're gonna resend all of those sheets out after this meeting. Wes will resend all of those out to everybody again.
Okay, so Chair, sorry.
Yeah.
So disrespectful. So Chair, one of the things I think we forgot on this agenda, and we didn't have time on the previous agenda, was to introduce our executive assistant. Right? So I will let you do that, but I would also suggest that to help relieve Wes, and understanding also that our executive assistant is new, so there's a little bit of training that needs to take place, that we ask our executive assistant to set up a process. We all have access to all the documents that we need to have, the worksheets and all those things, because I don't think we can just go on and get those documents. They have to be provided to us. Is that correct, Wes? And perhaps Puena can do that, set up something where we as board members can go in and can pick up the proper document, and then as simple as possible with all the correct elements, give us the step-by-step for our travel, because this is going to continue, and relieve Wes of that kind of responsibility. Of course, Wes will have to guide for a while, but that should be something we can ask our EA to assist us with.
Okay.
I'll
So
be happy to work with Puena on it.
Yeah, let me introduce Puena. I think many of you met him, if not all of you, when we met with the governor, but Puena is in the DOFA room. So he comes to us with great credentials and experience, and we look forward to working with him. But you might have just killed his fight just now when he told him that he got to figure out.
I saw him make like that. I saw him give us a thumbs up, right? That's right.
I cannot see that far.
Mahalo,
Thank
Puena.
you. Oh, thank you. Okay. So we'll get moving on. Maybe we got to create some kind of Google share or something to where we can just put in those documents so that we have a repository for documents as well as a process explanation of the process.
Yeah, so it makes it easier for us. We can print up everything, all the proper documents, sign it all, and then mail it to the set address. We just need all the information.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. I held on to all my original documents, but I needed your travel approval signature.
Yeah.
So you have the original travel approval. I don't.
Yeah. Well, I gotta sign them in blue, so I gotta look for a blue pen.
Yeah. We're gonna mail you one blue pen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the next item talks about our budget, right? So we talked about just briefly seeking from the legislature another headcount to get some type of IT specialist. So Wes, if you might discuss that, as well as the next item, which deals with the budget process.
Okay, so you may or may not know, or I'll just reiterate that the legislature authorized the authority with the 5 additional positions, as well as with the executive assistant position. So you have authorized 6 positions now for a total budget of $14 million. And so we're in this upcoming session looking at the second year of the biennium budget, which is the fiscal year 2025, from July 1, 24 through June 30, 25. And so the legislature already authorized 14 million for that year that hasn't started yet. But in this upcoming session, they can do anything to change it if they wanted to. In other words, they can actually reduce it, or they can actually increase it. What the authority is looking for now is to, as Chair said, get an IT position, because you're going to need a lot of equipment, accessories, and other things. In fact, one of the things that we'll be looking at is whether the authority members would like to have, an iPad versus a Surface. we need to get all of you equipment so you can communicate on authority business. And so we are proposing to the legislature to get an information technology specialist position for the authority's consideration anyway, at this point. It'll be at a salary of a range of about 80,000 to 100,000. And it's due, unfortunately. So the instructions were dated on September 5th. It was given to DLNR sometime between the 5th and the 11th. And so September 11th is when DLNR sent it out to the attached agencies. And the first submission is due today, 2 or 3 days later. So that's the kind of timeline we're dealing with. You know, some of the difficulties that you as authority members and even other divisions and departments are encountering is the timing. And the thing about it is that the instructions say that you're not able to increase your budget because of some of the things that have been ongoing with Maui and some of the other issues. They're going in with a flat budget, which means that whatever you got before is whatever you're going to get. And if you're getting anything additional, you have to give up something in your budget to get it, unless it's an emergency. And so that's the bottom line. So in other words, because if the authority asks for an IT position, it has to take it from whatever they have already in terms of an appropriation, so that the 14 million stays the same.
Any questions for Wes about that? The budget memo was very long about the because of some of the financial needs arising out of Maui. They're going to do their best to keep the rest of the state at whatever you asked for last year. So there's going to be no room for us to add, but with our budget, we should have no problem of adding the IT specialist. Right?
I don't know if you, Chair, if you need consensus or a vote on this, but I do think it's an important position. It's going to help us in all of our areas, especially in our communication.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll be depending on outside people and other people to make every single move, because none of us are capable of picking that up.
Laura.
Yes, I agree with Noi. I'm in full support of that IT position. And I think for the salary range, we should be able to get someone who can lead us in all of our IT needs, at least right now. I guess just looking ahead to the next legislative session, where already everything is sort of on the chopping block because of the huge financial need to support Maui. And so I don't know if now is probably not the appropriate time, but I do think it might be helpful, or at least I might like to see just what we're thinking about in terms of looking at our budget and what's really feasible and planned in terms of our use of the 14 million for that second year, because I think the legislature, if we can come to them with straightforward and honest expectation, okay, we really, due to whatever it is, delays and in HR processing or whatnot, we don't think we're going to need this, or we have other things that we're not quite ready for at this time, but we still really need this. It might help us to not have critical things cut if we're the ones determining where we do have flexibility in our budget.
Right.
But I don't know that this is the meeting to do that at.
You know, probably have to do it at a subsequent meeting, but to your point, the big question is, do we think that we will be able to move over the employees from the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship to the authority next fiscal year? We say no, that frees up a lot of what we had asked for in our private budget, because we asked for that, understanding that we may not be able to do it, and actually expressing that to the legislature, but that we needed that flexibility. But if, you know, as we proceed along, we see that that's not feasible in the upcoming fiscal year, we may have that discussion and then decide to give back that money.
But Chair, can I add something if you don't mind?
But
Yeah, so we try to develop an operational expenditure plan. Trying to see where that 14 million could be dedicated towards. And I can distribute it to all of the authority members, Chair, that's okay. And a lot of the 14 million is going to be tied up by consulting work too. There's a need, and a great need at that, because you're starting up an organization to have consultants assist moving forward. So is that something that can be provided, Chair?
yeah. Yeah. And we'll have a discussion about it in the next meeting.
And I apologize in advance because a lot of these documents are due before you have your board meetings, so something has to be turned in, unfortunately. And maybe I can be blamed in part for it because I used to be director of finance, so some of the deadlines might have been imposed or created by me, so I'm really apologize in advance for that.
Yeah, but we always have the opportunity to give back, right? I mean, we go in with what we have, with the understanding that we're trying to review what we're going to do. We can always add this. Giving back is easy, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the prudent thing to do. Actually, the legislature would view that as a prudent strategy.
Yeah.
So may I make a suggestion, Chair? Because these things that are coming up and the budget deadlines and some of the requests that may be coming from the legislature, from executive branches, going to not be very consistent with our meeting schedule, and may not be something that we can as a whole participate immediately in the discussion, but we have a governance committee. And if the large group is willing to allow the governance committee, which is, the chair and the two vice chairs, to address these issues as they come up against the deadlines, I think that's how we're going to have to handle. So I suggest that's how we're going to have to handle these deadlines.
So I think it would be good if we as an authority can establish some guideposts for that committee. And that's something we can discuss next meeting. There also, and I haven't reviewed it recently, but there's an exemption in Sunshine dealing with specific legislative testimony type issues. So maybe at the next meeting, we can talk about both guidance in terms of our legislative approach that everybody on the authority can weigh in on. And then secondly, how that sort of interrelates with the Sunshine exemption in terms of establishing testimony.
And I'm talking not just about testimony, but the kinds of things Wes is bringing up. It's the internal executive branch structure. That's even before the testimonies, that deadlines come up, like the one we're just experienced. And there's budgets that get called for, right,
Right.
Wes?
Yeah,
And
but yeah,
they're
but
just timely with us, but I just wanted to include all that.
yeah. But my idea is to have a discussion so that we can have some guidance from the rest of the authority in terms of what people, think we should be doing. And then the specifics we would leave to those type of boundaries, I guess. But anyway, we can talk about that. Okay. Nothing for us to vote on or to move on. Anyone have any questions or would like to discuss the budget any further? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Chun to give us an update. As Greg is coming to the front, I mentioned to Greg that I thought, and we are continuing to try to evolve our relationship with the university as it relates to co-management. But what I told Greg is that one of the basic things to me that we have to kind of figure out is communications in terms of what kind of information does Greg present to us, and at what time, the timing of that communication. And basically what I'm telling him is that my thought, and we will have to work with the university with this, is that he provide us the same information that he's giving to the Mauna Kea Management Board, the regents, and potentially the administration at the same time. So that we have our own ability to kind of react or respond to some of the issues that are being brought up. But anyway, that's for further discussion. So with that, turn it over to Greg.
Chair, if I may, before Greg speaks, I just wanted to acknowledge Greg and his team and Doug Simons and the folks from IFA. I had the opportunity to go there last Thursday and receive a briefing from them about their activities. They really rolled out the red carpet and really appreciated the time that they had to provide me. I guess it was last Wednesday. So in any event, I did want to acknowledge that and the effort it took for them to bring this layman up to speed, so to speak, and encourage if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, which I know several of you have. That's really a good idea to do it. Thanks.
Yeah, they do a good job of providing briefings. So again, if you've not had that briefing, it's probably worthwhile to spend a couple hours. I think Doug spent a couple hours with them so that you can get a better lay of the land in terms of what they do and how they do it, and their budget and some of the big ticket items that are on the radar for them. So thank you, Greg, for and your staff for what you did for Doug. But Greg keeps reminding me that he wants to make that available to all of you, whoever needs or wants that briefing. So with that, Greg.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Aloha kako, good to see everyone. And thank you, Doug, for those kind words. The team really appreciated the time with you as well, and look forward to being able to spend time with others of you who might like to receive the same briefing. It's basically the same thing we've done for John and Wes and Noe and Rich, and we just continue to update it with more current information. But it's a nice overview of our operations and our finances and how things sort of stitch together. So for my update this month, there are several items I wanted to review with you folks. These are the first couple of items are related to the comments that John just made about figuring out how to get you folks information that we are reviewing internally at UH as we review projects and things like that. And we've talked about it internally. We have some ideas on sort of how to schedule that, but fully committed to getting you folks the information at the same time that our internal review process is looking at things. So the first set of items have to do with updates on some of the things that some of the smaller projects that I've mentioned to you folks before. We have now completed our what I call our internal review of 4 projects, all of them being what we call type A projects, projects with minimal impact. And when I say internal review, that means our initial internal screening, as well as taking these projects through our Environment Committee, Kahuku Mauna, and Mauna Kea Management Board to integrate their recommendations before submitting it to DLNR. All 4 projects, as I mentioned, are type A projects. The first 2 are projects that we are seeking DLNR concurrence with. These are projects that normally would be exempt from any kind of formal approval from DLNR. But basically, because of our experience in working with them or special circumstances around the specifics of a project, sometimes we'll take it to DLNR and ask for their concurrence. We lay out our rationale of not only what the project is, but why we believe it's exempt, and ask for their concurrence. The first project is repainting the exterior of IRTF, which is the NASA infrared telescope facility on Mauna Kea. Normally, repainting is something that does, as I said, doesn't require any kind of formal approval. However, in this case, when the project was first scoped out and they did some testing, they did find some trace amounts of lead paint in the existing exterior paint. So IRTF will be conducting that work, or the work will be conducted for IRTF by what they call a RRP, or Repair, Renovate, and Paint Certified Contractor, who is certified to handle lead paint. The project is anticipated to be fairly straightforward, except for the additional measures that they'll be instituting for the removal, containment, and disposal of the paint. There will also be some soil analysis conducted before and after around the facility, before and after the activity. Additional, obviously, worker safety measures such as respiratory protection and protective suiting, and all other applicable regulatory measures will be instituted. The project does comply with all of our management plan requirements, our policies, internal policies, and whatnot. It was reviewed by Environment Committee. They're the ones who noted that they wanted these additional measures instituted because of the lead paint. Kahuku Mauna reviewed it, had no additional input, and Mauna Kea Management Board reviewed it this past week and had no additional input. I'll stop there and just see if there's any questions on that one. Okay, the second project that we are seeking concurrence from OCCL on is a project to install a safety handrail on the support facility roof of Gemini North Observatory. This project was actually issued a CUP back in 2019, but at the time, what Gemini wanted to do was to secure or create anchors around the roof line, where lifelines could be secured to when they had to do maintenance on the dome and maintenance on the roof. COVID hit and the project stopped, and then when they decided to reinstitute the work, they determined that the lifeline supports would probably not be sufficient to ensure that their workers would be safely secured to the facility. So what they would like to do is replace the lifeline anchor supports with a guard railing around the facility rooftop. So we are taking that to OCCL and asking them to concur with our analysis that this is a reasonable substitution to the existing CDP that they already have. I should say that, you know, when we do these concurrence letters, if OCCL decides that they want something more, then we sort of restart the process and take it through the whole process again. So should OCCL want to issue a permit, a new permit, the project would start all over again. Other than that, there are no special conditions attached to this project. It's kind of our standard set of conditions. Environment Committee, Kahuku Mauna, and Mauna Kea Management Board also did not have any additional recommendations attached that they wanted attached to the project. Any questions on this one? Okay, if there are no questions on those two, then the next two, both again type A projects, but these are projects that we are actually applying for what they call site plan approvals with OCCL. The first project is one I've spoken to you folks about before. This is a request to relocate 2 repeaters on to the Summit lunchroom. Just as to reiterate and to give you some refresh your memories, as part of the Hokukia decommissioning, there's a small utility or what we call generator building on that property. That building will also be part of the decommissioned site. That building right now houses 2 repeaters, one for USGS and one for VOAD, which is volunteer organizations active in disaster. And they activate, VOAD activates their repeater during emergency situations. Those repeaters, have determined an alternative site to locate them on. These would be on our lunchroom, our Summit lunchroom, which is part of the UH 88-inch telescope facility. That building is used to house some equipment, but it's also used to where Summit workers during the day go to get their lunch that we transport up there, so they don't have to drive back down. We'll be seeking site plan approval for this project. The repeaters are not mounted into the ground. There's no site or ground disturbance associated with this project. They'll be mounted directly to the sides of the building. Environment Committee, Kahuku Mauna, again, did not have any concerns. Neither did Mauna Kea Management Board. I should say that the VOAD repeater, once it's reinstalled or relocated to the lunchroom, will actually be taken over by the county civil defense as part of their civil defense emergency communication system. And they'll partner with VOAD on its use. I should note that it was activated during the Maui fires. VOAD did activate that repeater to provide additional communications to not just to Maui, but also for the fires that we had down in North Kohala.
Questions for Greg on this project? Okay. Greg, I was going to ask you, if we take this up at the, I want to try to start creating a process. So if we take this up at the next meeting, would that be problematic for you in terms of what you're doing?
Not sure what you're getting at.
Well, what I would want you to do is that, I know that you have a write-up
Yeah,
project. What I would want to do is put that write-up as part of the next agenda and actually get our concurrence, which I think will give based upon the lack of questions. But I want to create a process whereby the authority has the opportunity to review that write-up that you presented, for example, to the Mauna Kea Management Board. Same thing with the next one. So what I'm trying to understand is that we use this process, it's going to negatively impact your progress in terms of installing the repeaters.
I think going forward, what we want to do is build into the timeline, our timeline, the period that you folks would need to or would want to review the projects on your own. For these projects right now, they're ready to be submitted to OCCL. And so that's what I'm not, I mean, if you're asking us to hold off on submitting these projects to OCCL until after your next meeting, I need to discuss that with our team because I'm not quite sure what else is pending with some of these projects, you know, contractors, bid process, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Because the next issue, or the next one is the visitor center, right?
Yeah.
Which is again, a minor, I mean, in my opinion, a minor change. You're not increasing footprint. All you do is enclosing a really small part of the visitor center.
Right.
But I'm just trying to create us a process, right? So I'm trying to figure out whether or not people are comfortable without having reviewed that write-up, which I reviewed, which doesn't add anything other than what Greg said, except you have some pictures and stuff like that. Whether it will drastically impede your progress on installation. I don't want us to be the one holding up something that, for safety reasons, for the state, that you know, I don't want to hold up that project. If it needs to be done in the next month or whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, why don't I just complete this review, then I'll send you the material, and you can go ahead and agendize it for the next meeting. But I'll need to get back to you and discuss sort of the timeline issue that we might be facing on our side.
Let's split up the two then. Does anyone of the authority members have a concern about the repeaters? The repeaters are just 15-foot antennas that they're moving from one location to the next. No ground disturbance. They're going to be fully attached to that. And let's see if we can get concurrence on that. But then on the visitor center, because you have pictures and stuff so that people don't think it's more than what it is, maybe we can, that one to me is not a safety related issue. Yeah. No.
So I don't have any issue right now with any of the descriptions that have been expressed to us. I just wish there were a way that we could read that and ingest it, you know, as we move along. So it's not just sitting and listening to the report at the once a month, you know?
No, that's my point. But for this one, this particular, I'm trying to establish that process that we're going through. But for this particular one, because there potentially is a safety type issue, I'd like us to proceed. But then on the visitor center, I would have him submit to us the visitor center. He can brief us on it, but he would submit the documentation that supports the visitor center minor modification. And then we wouldn't decide on the visitor center until next week. So we're creating this process.
Yeah, I agree. And I still, even though we say today nobody has an issue, would like to have something followed up in writing just so we can have it in our files.
Yeah.
So if Paul Horner forgets that it was sent to him, he can see it in the file, right?
No, but that's true. I would still have, Greg, even if we concur with the antenna.
Yeah.
Repeater issue, that we would have the, documentation submitted to you for your review. And then put in a file. Doug.
Thank you. I'm concerned actually from the agendizing portion of this, because we're now being asked to make decisions, even if it's a concurrence. And that's not something that the agenda asked us to do. This was an update. I didn't see any decision-making requirements here.
All right.
So I'm concerned that we're being asked to make decisions today, and it wasn't something that was agendized for that. If we're going to make decisions, I would ask that the agenda includes that separately as decision-making, even if it's just basic concurrence type of stuff. So that's one. Two, I guess we are inserting ourselves into type A decision-making. And I was not aware that, well, we had the conversation on August 30th, but obviously that wasn't a decision-making forum. So if in the process, we're now inserting ourselves into type A, maybe that's a conversation. So, thank you.
So Greg, maybe what we can
Concur
do.
with Doug. I concur with Doug, and I guess it's the process that you're talking about, John, to line up for us so we know when it's informational and and when we do have to make decisions.
All right. So let's agendize it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Both of these projects. Let's have the thing submitted. But Greg, I think you're getting the sense, well, we can talk about the visitor center, but you're getting the sense that there seems to be no objection to the repeater. It's more a process issue rather than a substantive objection issue, right? So maybe, you can tell your folks or staff that there seems to be no, so you can do whatever you can, subject to getting, and to Doug's point, we got to figure out what our involvement is in terms of project A type submittals. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. This is obviously perfect example of the need for us to work through exactly what joint management is and how it's going to work. I brought these projects forward because our discussion the other day is that we wanted to have everything that's being presented to Mauna Kea Management Board available to you folks. The only reason why the paperwork didn't get submitted is because I didn't have time to put it on your agenda.
Yeah.
So we can certainly do that going forward. I don't think there's a problem with holding off on the visitor information station project, which I'll describe in a second. And even for the concurrence, the projects that we're seeking concurrence from the DLNR on, we have complete write-ups of those as well. So I can submit those so that you folks have that. But, again, pointing out, I think this conversation is emphasizing the need for us to figure out exactly how joint management is going to work.
Right, but I've talked to Greg that having a hypothetical discussion doesn't get us very far to me. So these examples are actually a good way for us to kind of further define our thinking as well as the processes. But people gotta be aware that this is an iterative type approach, right? Where we're going to keep on refining. We're not going to come up with the be all approach, just like I said, hypothetically.
So then, Chair, if I may, I would make these comments in the stead of what you were just talking about. For the first two, both of those to me are items that would have minimal impact. They're about keeping what currently is there in a maintenance kind of way. And I don't know that we necessarily have to have, it's fine to be updated, but I don't think that there's any decision-making responsibilities that we would take on. I think we would slow the process down on something that's relatively just repair type of work. On the repeater piece, that's a safety issue, and I would not necessarily want us to necessarily be holding that up. When it comes to the visitor center and anything that has to do with the visitor center, I think that that's associated more with the community. And I would say that even though it may be minimal impact in a terrain or geographic kind of way, that actually the community engagement element of our mission would have us be paying attention to that. And I could see us having a concurrence responsibility there.
Okay, people good with that? All right, so anybody have any problems with the first three projects that have been described so far? All right, so we have some type of concurrence on the first three projects. Great.
Okay, so the last one is the visitor information station. And you'll see in the packet of information, all the photos and whatnot. There is a small section of the outside patio. It's currently under the eave that extends out from the building. That is not usable space. It's covered, but it's not usable. We use it just kind of to store supplies, equipment, and things like that. During the day, we have outdoor displays that are brought out, and right currently at night we store those inside the visitor information station. So during the day we bring them out and we set them up on the patio outside. This proposal is to enclose this small little alcove that's part of the current structure to be used as storage. And it would be enclosed. Our folks would do the work. It would just be enclosed and secured so that we can put our displays and other equipment. There's a solar telescope that we bring out during the day that we hook up to a big video monitor. So we put the solar telescope in there as well at night. So that's essentially what that project is. It's to create storage. The enclosure would be made, it would be designed and built to blend in with the rest of the architecture there. No expansion of the footprint or anything like that. This project we are taking to DLNR for a site plan approval just because it involves enclosing a portion of an existing structure.
So I've seen the photographs and that's what we're going to be provided with for our next meeting. And we'll agendize it, but it's a very, very small enclosure and it's just existing. Go ahead. No.
My question is, what is the square footage when you say small?
Let me look for it in here. I want to say it's about 5 by 8, 5 by 10, something like that.
Right on the corner, it's under the eaves, one of the corners of the existing structure. It's on the if you're entering the visitor center, it's on your right hand side. So they're going to put a wall on that existing rock wall under the eaves already. But anyway, so Greg, let's hold off on moving forward. Then you can submit both just for our information on the repeater, but then we'll agendize this idea about the enclosure on the visitor center.
Yeah.
One more question. How are you intending, Greg, to let the community know about this, particularly about the visitor center modification?
It's not the kind of project that we would normally put out a lot of information on, but we certainly can take that as a recommendation to do that.
They did present it to the management board, FYI, with the documentation and the pictures, which is a public meeting and is, I think, recorded too. But I don't know about additional. It's a really small enclosure.
I realize that. I just am suggesting that be considered because, as Doug mentioned, it's a very visible space. So just so that people don't jump to the wrong conclusion, that if you tell them ahead of time what you're doing, you're likely to just eliminate anything, any kind of confusion like that.
Sure. We'll add that to the implementation plan.
Just a suggestion. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, just one other item. No, I did want to update you folks on status of our decommissioning work. I did ask Kapua to pull up some photos. The CSO decommissioning is, as you've probably seen from some of the public information that they've been pushing out, is proceeding a little bit ahead of schedule at this point. This past week, the focus was on removing the mirror support frame, that's that big disc looking thing, from the observatory itself. So ECMoto is up there. They've been up there since Monday, and have since removed that. Can I get the next one, please? You can see it's been placed on the ground on a platform, small platform, and that is where it will start to be disassembled. And all of the parts will be marked and put into a container to transport down the Mauna and to Kauai for shipping to Chile. I'm going to get the next one, please. And then at the brief project team briefing this morning, Sunil Gowala, the Caltech project manager, observatory director, provided this updated photo. This is, you can see inside the dome where a lot of the platforms, surrounding platforms, have been removed. Some of the walls and whatnot. That triangular looking thing, which is the pedestal that the observatory or the mirror sat on, is what's scheduled to be removed this week, the remainder of this week. They believe they will, ECMoto believes they'll be done with this phase of the decommissioning work sometime next week, if not actually this week, at which time that crane will be transported back down the mountain, and the preparations for the next phase of work with Goodfellows coming up on the 25th will be put in place. Goodfellow is responsible for removing the remaining internal elements of the dome structure. They believe that that's as soon. CSO believes that it will take the remainder of the fall to fully extract and remove all of the internal components of the observatory before winter comes in, and then they'll have to close the dome up and wait to the spring to finish the exterior demolition. That building, that small building on the right bottom corner, is also planned to be decommissioned or removed as well, and the interior parts and equipment, some of that has been removed already, and the rest of it will be removed by Goodfellows. You see some of the containers there that all of the parts are being loaded into for transport to Chile. So that project is moving along well. The other thing is we have put the Hopukea decommissioning project out to bid. There's a pre-bid site meeting scheduled for the 26th. I think we have a little more than half a dozen contractors who have signed up for expressed interest in the project. So we'll have the pre-bid meeting on the 26th, along with a mandatory site visit. And then I forget the timeline for them to submit their bids after that. But that project probably will not be able to get started until next year, once we get through the bidding and contracting and all of that phase.
hey, Greg, talk about the monitors that you have for the existing decommissioning.
Sure. So as part of the decommissioning plan, sort of several layers of oversight. Caltech themselves are required to have an independent construction monitor. So this is someone that they have to pay hire from an outside another company that's not doing the actual work itself. That person is there on site during all construction or deconstruction activities. CMS, we have our own independent construction monitor to ensure that things are UH rules and policies and our requirements are being complied with. Once ground disturbance activities occur, there will be an archaeological monitor on site, and that person will be there to ensure if there are any archaeological sites or issues that come up that they are on site to make a call on what needs to be done. Periodically throughout the project, well, during the ground disturbance part, Caltech is also required to have a biological monitor to monitor for any issues that might come up with invasive species or the natural habitat. And then on top of that, Caltech is required to have a cultural monitor who is there, has been there throughout all of this activity that we've been that we just showed you. And the cultural monitor is there to ensure the safety as well as the employees from a spiritual perspective, but also to ensure that if there are any other kinds of cultural issues that may come up during the work, they are there to provide guidance as well as to advise people on it. All of these monitors have the ability to stop the work. They have the authority to stop the work if something should come up. So there are multiple levels of oversight that are part of the project and will be part all the way through, or in place all the way through.
Questions?
I just have one question, Greg, and that is if there's going to be an update in the future about this decommissioning, if we might not ask the operator themselves or the Caltech representative themselves to be at the meeting.
Sure. I can talk to Sunil about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions or discussion about anything in Greg's report? Okay. If not, thank you, Greg. Going to move to the next item, which I mentioned earlier, is the need to have an executive session to talk about the proposed lawsuit from OHA. The proposed lawsuit where they would make MKSOA as a member of our defendant in that lawsuit. So what I need first, so that we can confer with our attorney, is I need a motion to move into executive session pursuant to section 92-5 parens A close parens 4 close parens to consult with the board's attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the authorities liabilities on the matter dealing with the proposed OHA lawsuit.
I so move.
I got a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Well, let me ask this. Is everybody, all the authority members alone in whatever location that they're at? All right.
Yes.
With that, all in favor raise your hand, please. Unanimous, okay, so Kapua, if you can put us into the next room.
Okay, and just to confirm, you need Anna in executive session as well.
No, I think, I gotta check on those, but I don't know if staff can be part of the executive session.
Okay,
So for now, we'll check on that. So just put in the authority members if you can.
okay.
So then they're in breakout.
Yeah, we're good. I just needed to check because if you needed to be in it, then I would need to
For the record, as per the process, the matter that we spoke with and sought legal counsel on dealt with the proposed motion by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to include the Mauna Kea Authority as a party in a lawsuit, civil number 17-1-1823-11. So with that, the announcement that we have is that our next meeting is on October 12th at 10 a.m. The only other announcement that I have is that I saw that one of our members, Richard Matsuda, was recognized as one of the most outstanding leaders, respected leaders, not outstanding. I gave him too much credit. Respected leaders in our community by
Most admired leaders.
most admired leaders.
During this meeting.
So we're all really in awe and
Where was that? I didn't see anything like that. Where was he recognized?
Business News identified most respected leaders, and Rich was identified as one of the most respected leaders. So please give him due respect, because we wouldn't want him to.
That's Rich.
Congratulations.
Move to adjourn. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay, I guess second for a motion to adjourn. All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Aloha.
Aloha.